Okay. So we've started recording the meeting. Before we get going, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish people who've been here since time immemorial and are still with us, and want to acknowledge their claims to this land. So with that started, could I have a motion to approve the minutes? Anyone want to give?
Am I allowed to do that?
I motion
Yes,
to approve
sure
the minutes.
Okay, could I have a second?
I second.
Okay, great. All in favor, or and you can put a hand up, or you can put a thumbs up on your screen if that works, and we'll. Okay. We've got thumbs up going. Yeah. Okay. Any opposed? All right. So we'll go ahead and call that approved. Stop sharing those. Okay. So that gets us to our guest speaker, Eleonora. I'm just going to do the set up the slideshow here, and I'll go ahead and share it. That was not how that was supposed to go. Just a moment. Let me try this one more time. Okay. You know what? We're going to just share it in the window over here, and we'll get to see the things on the sidebar as well. So, Eleonora, take it away.
Yes. Hi. Thank you. Good evening. So my name is Eleonora Vaughn, and I'm the mental health counselor at the Ingram High School Teen Health Center. And I saw that our Teen Health Center nurse, Terry Ginster, is also here, and then our school nurse, Janet, is also here too. So if you have any questions that you're looking for a nurse to answer, this would also be a good time. So I just wanted to, I appreciate you having me, and I just wanted to go over some of the things that, sorry, let me see if I can turn up my help. Let's see. Okay, I've got my microphone turned all the way up. Is that any better? All right, so I'll continue, and feel free to put questions in the chat as well, and I'll try and catch those as I can, and if not, I'll go back and try and answer those at the end. So if you could change to the next slide, please. So I just wanted to share some of the data and information that's been coming out as far as how the pandemic has been impacting mental health, particularly for teens. And so since March 2020 through to February 2021, there's been a 60% increase in emergency visits for children, youth, and teens, specifically around mental health distress. And then of those, the 60% of those are attributed to the 15 to 18-year-old teenagers. And so just in general, I know what I've been seeing as far as kind of struggles that students are facing, and then my colleagues in the schools as well, is just in general a pretty big increase around anxiety and depression. And just to highlight too that mental health concerns were already increasing over the past 10 years or so. One of the statistics from SAMHSA just talks about how in 2011, the rate of depression in children was around 8%, and in 2017, that had already risen up to 14%. And kind of the estimates right now are around closer to 20%. And so just highlighting how the pandemic has kind of amplified the already growing trends around mental health concerns for teens. Next slide, please. And so I just wanted to go over some different things. Some of this stuff I'll go through pretty quickly and just focus on a couple more main pieces. But as far as kind of helpful things for students and teens right now, routine and structure is a really big one. You know, particularly for students having kind of a way to start their day and end their day, particularly when they're working from home for virtual learning, when they don't have the same structure that they get in a school setting. And I think the biggest thing with that I've really been encouraging students is to not be doing school in bed. A lot of students tend to wake up, roll over, pull their computer out and start class right from bed. So if there's ways to really encourage your students, if that's one of their patterns right now, just to try and get out of bed to do school, whether it's even in their room, sitting at a table, just somewhere other than their bed is a really great step to do. And then just their home learning space. You know, like I mentioned, that one's outside of their bedroom if possible. I know everybody's homes, living situations are different. And so you just have to make things work as best as you can with the home environment that you have. And then also just removing any distractions as much as possible. And then healthy habits on top of that is just around managing sleep. A lot of students have really been struggling with sleep. A lot of adults have been struggling with sleep. And having a hard time getting to bed earlier at more reasonable times and often staying up very late, in addition to what's kind of typical for adolescent development. And then eating habits, physical activity is also another big one, trying to get students to move around a little more, and then any other self-care. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about time management. Again, without the structure of the typical school day, managing time has also been a little more of a struggle for students. So these are just a couple different ideas. Some students might already be doing these, but some other new things to try too. Right, and next slide, please. Okay, so social connections has really been one of the biggest impacts of mental health. And so the first part of it is just kind of mindful social media use. And so encouraging students, if they're using social media, to use it in a way that's really helping them kind of maintain their relationships and connect with other people, and being mindful of the time spent on other social media outlets that maybe isn't fostering the positive social connections. And then encouraging in-person interactions with their friends or other peers as much as possible. However, within whatever the current safety guidelines are and whatever your family is comfortable with health-wise. And so that's really a big one. You know, there are some students who have returned to school part-time, and the students that I've talked to who have returned have really enjoyed having that in-person connection. For some people, they've really disconnected from friends over the past year, even if they had a big friend group or a close friend group. And so really trying to reconnect with some friends or connect with new friends is a really positive thing to encourage with your students right now. And then if in-person connections aren't possible, and then really looking at some different virtual ways to stay connected with peers. And then I also listed a couple other social activities. So the Gage Teen Art Studio, prior to the pandemic, had already been offering a weekly drop-in art group for teens that's free. And so they've transitioned that to virtual. So that's a really great resource if your child is artistic or wants to try some different art options. And then the Lambert House is another group that has done really well at transitioning a lot of their programs over to virtual spaces. All right, next slide, please. And so these are just some other ideas of ways that you can support your child. And many of these are probably things that you're already doing, and sometimes it can be just a helpful reminder to keep doing those. So working from a cooperative stance, noticing their strengths. A lot of times it's really easy to notice the things that they're not doing right. And so trying to make it a habit and a point of acknowledging the things that they are doing right as well. Taking their concerns seriously, and then reviewing your expectations. And so particularly around academics right now, kind of school prior to the pandemic and academic performance prior to the pandemic is different from what students are really able and capable of doing virtually. And so just trying to really manage those expectations in light of some of the other challenges that they might be facing around mental health and their previous coping strategies that they might not have access to as much now. All right, next slide, please. And so if you do have some concerns, so obviously with any significant change, so at the start of the pandemic, thanks, I'll try and speak louder. At the start of the pandemic, and then as the pandemic continued, and also with some students transitioning back to school, there are some behaviors that will change, some regression. There's a lot of anxiety around social interactions, returning back to school in person. And so some of that is normal. However, that should also be a temporary change. And so if it continues beyond 2 weeks, beyond a couple weeks, then that is something to maybe talk to your teen about or talk to another supportive person. So some changes just to keep in mind are around kind of your child's typical eating or sleeping habits, increased sadness, hopelessness, anger, irritability. Irritability is usually a really big one for teens. Making statements about not wanting to be alive, withdrawing or avoiding friends and family, a change in their school attendance and school work. So if they had previously been attending school fairly regularly and then that started dropping off, or same thing with their schoolwork. Let's see, not engaging in activities they might typically enjoy. So if they usually like to play soccer or play an instrument or do some artwork and it's not something that they're really wanting to do anymore, that's also something to keep an eye out for. And then any drug and alcohol use, especially changes or increases around drug and alcohol use. And so if you do have a concern, feel free to call us. I know at the Teen Health Center, we're always happy to talk with parents, even if you're not quite sure if it should be a concern or what to do about it. We are happy to talk through that with parents at any time. All right, next slide, please. And then parent self-care. This one is super, super important and one that often gets pushed to the side. And so just keeping in mind that a parent's wellness is also very important to a child's wellness. I use the analogy a lot of the time that when you're flying on an airplane and the flight attendants are talking about the safety measures, and if the cabin loses oxygen, put your face mask on before you help put somebody else's face mask on. So yeah, so parent self-care, very important. And so part of that is just kind of monitoring and checking in on your own level of stress. Some days our stress is going to be higher, some days it's going to be a little more manageable. And then modeling healthy coping activities. So for yourself, what sort of healthy activities do you enjoy that you can practice, not just for yourself, but then that also shows your child too. These are some things that are helpful. Modeling healthy screen time. I know that can be a really tricky one with cell phones and working from home for a lot of parents. Also focusing on what you have control over versus what you don't have control over. And this is something I also talk with students about a lot, particularly during the pandemic, and there has been so much out of our control. And so really trying to focus a lot on the pieces that we do have control over. And then also having your own support network. So reaching out for help and support from family, friends, the school. I know a lot of the school staff are always willing to help support you and your children. All right, next slide. So here are just a couple coping strategies that can be helpful. I'm not going to go too much in depth in mindfulness. There's a lot of information about it. And so in a nutshell, mindfulness is just really focusing on being fully present in the moment, not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, but just right in this exact moment, what are you experiencing? And it's a way to practice being curious in a non-judgmental way towards ourselves. All right, next slide. And so this is just a couple examples of some different mindfulness practices that take just a minute or so. And so the first one is a grounding exercise. And so just kind of taking a breath and noticing 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And this is something that you can do for yourself, or if you want to practice it with your child too, or suggest to them that's something that they can try. And then just the STOP acronym, and also gratitude. Gratitude's a big part of mindfulness, and really trying to notice things that we're grateful for. Next slide. And so these were just a couple more examples of some mindfulness practices. They're videos. I won't play them right now because I think one's about like 13 minutes and the other one's about 10 minutes as well. But one is just around a body scan. And so that's a little more physical, interactive, noticing what your body's experiencing. And so that can be a helpful thing for students, particularly if they're feeling stressed or anxious, just trying to notice how their body might be responding to that. All right, and the next slide. And so these are some useful wellness apps. They should all be free. Hopefully that hasn't changed. I should probably go back and check them again. And so there's a combination of ones that have helpful, healthy coping strategies. There are some that are mood trackers, just if there are things that your teen or yourself, you know, if you're wanting to track and notice how things happen or how often things happen, those can be some good things. And also some apps have some different strategies around mindfulness on them as well. Okay, yeah, thank you. And so just in summary, just a couple main takeaways is that parent self-care is very important. Something that I encourage and try to practice myself. Encouraging in-person social interaction for your child, obviously within the safety guidelines and your family's needs. And then also really encouraging daily routines and self-care and healthy coping strategies and activities. So I listed some resources here. Obviously the Teen Health Center is one of them. And then Crisis Connections is the local crisis resource. Teen Link is a great place if teens want to talk anonymously to another teen. They are Seattle area teenagers who have been trained and are supervised by adults. Seattle Children's, they have a mental health referral service where if you are looking for a mental health provider, you can contact them with your health insurance and sort of what you're looking for, and they will call around and find usually like 2 to 3 mental health providers who are taking new clients and have openings. The one caveat to that is that right now they have a 6-week wait at least. That might have changed in the last couple of weeks. So that is something that is still taking a little while. And then lastly, the Child Mind Institute has a lot of great information on their website around mental health and particularly related to the pandemic. And so I think that is all I have. I don't know if anybody has questions.
So we
Yes.
we had a question in the chat about does screen time equal self-care?
Yeah.
And
I think what that really gets back to is what are they doing with that screen time? You know, is it a way that they're connecting with other people, kind of maintaining their relationships? And in that case, it probably is self-care right now. If it's around being able to avoid other things or kind of zone out, then I would not qualify that as self-care. You know, avoidance is something that just sort of perpetuates anxiety, depression. And so we really don't want students avoiding that or kind of numbing out to things. But yeah, again, if it's around maintaining relationships, then yes, that can be self-care.
okay. Because we got bombed earlier, I'm going to have people, you can unmute yourself and then ask a question, and we'll just try to keep from stepping on each other this way. That way, if there's somebody, if something inappropriate is happening, I know who is saying it, and we can clear them out of the meeting. So go ahead and open it up to other questions. So I have one of my own, and you know, sometimes it feels like that when students are talking about anxiety and they're feeling anxious about something, it almost feels like an excuse as I don't really want to do my stuff that I'm supposed to do, and sort of an all-purpose excuse. Do you have some help for how to kind of identify, separate when that's important and when it's an excuse?
Sure. Yeah, and I think, one is just really to listen to that and try and get down to what their concerns are and what is it that is sort of creating that anxiety if they're able to name it. And then the other thing too is that with anxiety, I just talked a little bit about avoidance. And so avoidance happens quite a lot with anxiety, because if you avoid what's making you anxious, the anxiety goes away. But that's just a temporary thing. And it actually, it creates kind of a bigger wave of anxiety and keeps the anxiety continuing in those same situations. And so, it's focusing on reducing that avoidance. And so whether that's an excuse or whether it's real anxiety, trying to figure out ways to still get that thing done that's making them anxious, and maybe providing some support and smaller steps in working towards that.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much, Eleanor. We really appreciate you coming by and sharing these resources. And I, for anyone who's new to the school, I encourage you to check out the Teen Health Center. It's really a great resource on site and remotely. In pandemic times or not pandemic times. So thank you so much.
Feel free to call us at any time. We're happy to answer questions or help connect you with other supports or resources.
Thank you. Okay, so.
Thank you.
So on to other business. I'm going to put out a pitch. This is recruiting season. You've probably gotten lots of emails about that, and Friends of Ingram is no exception. We have a bunch of positions that we really need to fill to be able to run next year. The big ones are secretary, maintains their minutes and agendas and that sort of thing. We also are going to need a treasurer and a bookkeeper, so keeping our financial stuff in line. If you are willing or able to volunteer for any of those, we would love to have you. If you know somebody who could do some of those things, we would love to have their help. There's a number of other positions that are open as well, from commitments of an hour or two a month to really as much time as you want to put in. But they're posted up on our website, friendsofIngram.org, and we would love to have you if you'd like to get involved in the school and help run this organization. We would love to have that assistance. I'm going to give a little report, talk a little bit about what we've done so far this year, just so that we have a sense of where Friends of Ingram has been. Our big focus this year has been getting through the pandemic. So we've had the Bright Futures program for students in need has really stepped up in the late spring last year, over the summer. We at one point we were giving out about I believe about $2,500 a month in gift cards, so that students would have food on the table, students and their families. I'm really excited about the generosity of the Ingram community in supporting that program and supporting supporting our students. So we're that's been, you know, one piece. We've also been supporting the teachers and the school through the pandemic. You may not know this, but Ingram was the first high school to have a marching band back on the field and playing, and that was partly because Friends of Ingram funded the bell covers so that they could do that safely. And you know, shortly after we funded that grant, all of the other schools were like, well, wait a minute, where can we get some of that? And so we were a couple of weeks ahead of the other schools there. We also helped fund the school musical this year, getting the students into a recording studio so that they can record that and produce that safely. The students are going to be recorded. I think they're starting recording on Friday, so this is it's a good thing. And we've just had, you know, lots of grants all the way through the school, through all kinds of different areas in the school. So that's been our focus, is supporting the school through the pandemic and then reopening. I think we've always said if there's a need that we can help meet, then, you know, tell us about it and we'll do our best to get there. So that's where Friends of Ingram has been up to. Are there any questions? Nobody's asking any questions. You're all just itching to grill Principal Flo here. So I think let's.
Now you know what it's like to teach online.
Hey, there's 3 people here who have their video on, so it's better than most of my kids' classes.
Oh my God. Hi, I had a question. I've got a freshman this year, so this is sort of new, but I just wanted to know where I would be able to find like a list of events or fundraisers or all of that happening for the coming year.
We don't have the calendar kind of gets settled over the summer, so we'll have we would in normal times we would have a welcome wagon for new freshmen in sort of May, June, and then a welcome back for students in the fall. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to have the welcome back in the fall. I've got a thumbs up from the big man himself. I think we'll be able to do that. That's usually in the first month or so of school, but we have to sort of organize a bunch of different people's schedules to make that happen. And there'll also be a curriculum night where you can walk around the school and meet your teachers and that kind of thing in the fall as well. So look for people look for news on that, and probably right around the start of school. Those will usually be 3 to 4 weeks after the start of school, so we can get people we can start telling people about it after they're paying attention after school starts, because it's really hard to get parents and students' attention until the first day of class. On fundraisers, though, we'll have the Friends of Ingram auction will be is typically in March or April. There's a couple of fundraisers for the Athletic Booster Club and the Performing Arts Boosters, and they'll be in. Actually, I'm not sure what the schedule is, but you'll typically have about a month of notice before we get into those ones. Any other questions? All right, take it away, Martin.
And I even remember to unmute. I'm getting better. Anyway, the format here is I give you some updates around the school, and at the end, if you have any questions for me, I'll answer them to the best of my ability. I want to start by saying 2 minutes before this meeting started, I got an email from the Seattle Fire Department that they might be changing the time of our Thursday COVID clinic from 1 to 4:30 to change it to 2 to 5:30. But anyway, if that's true, I'm trying to get confirmation. I'll message that out to the community, which has me segue into, I'd like to thank Helen from the FOI helping us put together with the Cancer Care Alliance the last school COVID clinic that was at Ingram High School. We were sort of a trendsetter with that. Since that time, the district has partnered with the Seattle Fire Department for 2 clinics at Ingram High School. Actually, there's some confusion. Everyone thinks it's at Ingram High School. Virtually every high school is doing it, and every middle school. It's just that they haven't communicated it out yet. So everyone thought it was only at Ingram. So we've been getting calls around the district. Hey, can I come to your school? The answer is sure. But if you have a middle school kid or you have a kid at one of the other high schools, they can get it right at their high school. But I'll welcome them at Ingram High School. So the clinic is this coming Monday from 9 to 11:30, and then a separate clinic on Thursday. It's either going to start at 1 or 2. I'll find out when I get the answer to my email. And then there's the follow-up shots, of course, a number of weeks later. And that date, you should have received an email from me regarding this in School Messenger, as well as a talking points text through the system. And I've also emailed all the students as well. So if you haven't received any information regarding this, it probably means we have the wrong email address or the wrong phone number. So that's a good barometer to see if what we have. So that's Monday and Thursday. Yes, it's excused if your student gets it during the school day. It's just like a regular doctor's appointment. If they're under 18, they will need the consent form. It's really short and sweet. Just print it out, sign it, and bring it with you. If you don't have a printer, if you follow the instructions we sent out, you can email something in, but that's not the preferred method because we're not really equipped to handle the hundreds and hundreds of emails back into my office manager's email account dealing with that. A common question I get is what's going to happen next year? Well, I can say the Washington State Department of Health has told everyone to expect full-time in-person learning next year. Of course, that's with the current status. You know, something could change like it does, but that's from the Department of Health to expect 5 days of teaching with kids in school. I'm not going to get into whether it's masked or not masked because that's something that'll probably be made, closer to that time. I believe there'll be an online option, but I am not 100% sure of that through the district. We have to acknowledge that for some kids, online learning has been their dream. It might be a smaller percentage, but for some kids it really worked out. And, I don't know where the district's going to take that. I would hope that they would have an online option in general anyway, COVID or not COVID, only because for some kids it works out great for them. And if they need to pick up a class or something, but also more importantly is that when they do an online option through a school district like this, we get the state and federal funding for it. So it's a lot of money that the district gives up when they let other school districts handle the online learning. The school year, we're developing the master schedule. I can say that, we had some budget cuts, but really we were able to squeak through without making any drastic changes. All the electives that we had this year will be next year. We're not losing any teachers to riffing or displacements. So it's really worked out well. Some schools just got hammered, of course, due to the COVID, as well as, let's say, Ballard and Roosevelt getting some of their students peeled off to go to Lincoln. So they're sort of downsizing over time. And so some of the schools are losing upwards of 5 to 10 teachers a year until that works out. Graduation, December 12th, it's been changed to Saturday. So it's at Memorial Stadium. The idea is to fit the parents in at 25% capacity. You would need a place that could fit them and also a place that had numbered seats. Maybe we could have gotten, well, we couldn't at Ingram because there's 1,000 only 1,000 seats, but if I recall, I think Memorial Stadium seats like 15,000 or something like that, or 12 to 15. And so we can easily socially distance, have a graduation, and they're working out now what that's going to look like, what rules we'll have, how many speakers, et cetera. I do know that there's no band or orchestra or anything like that, but it is an opportunity for a graduation. And so I'm supposed to get more information on that on Friday.
And that's June 12th?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, I want to thank the FOI for getting things like the bell covers for the band. So we ordered ours weeks and weeks ago, and so we got ours in. And then all of a sudden, all the other bands started, the district wanted to purchase them for all the other programs, but by that time, the lead time was like 2 months or something. They're probably stuck on a freighter in the Suez Canal or something. But they're taking, the other schools are probably getting their covers and probably right around the time school ends. But if they need them for next year, they'll have them. I think that's all I have for regular school day. People ask me what that looks like. So we have about half our students on in-person learning. So let's say that's 700. And then we split those into 2 cohorts. So we have A and B. And so we have approximately 350 students every day. It actually has gone quite smoothly. The kids hold up their cell phones with their little check mark showing that they've done the attestation. And we have kiosks there as well if a kid doesn't have a cell phone or what have you. And they have the opportunity to do it earlier so that we have a printout with their name on it. But either way, there's no lineup generally. It's just boom, boom, boom through our 3 entrances. We have one at the wheelchair ramp that goes down by the tennis courts for that side of the school, one at the front entrance by the flagpole, and then one for the 200 building where the science and art, et cetera, is, since that's a separate building. It's worked well. I mean, I could go into, does the attestation actually do anything? I don't know, but it's an expectation that everyone has. And it hasn't been too cumbersome. So, you know, so far, it is what it is. I mean, everyone's excited to get back in school, I suspect. I sincerely say, I'm desperate to get back with a normal school year. But I also, you know, we have to see where things go. So anyway, that's it. Any questions?
Are there any senior activities planned for this year?
Waiting for the senior activities question. So let me start by saying, as I've said before, I will never be more restrictive than the rules set out by the Seattle Public Schools. So if the school district says we can do it, we'll do it. However, at this point, we don't have a spree or dance or anything set up. There have been discussions of what it could look like if we had an event at the school, but we're trying to gauge sort of what interest would be. I've talked with the senior class president regarding, you know, having like a movie night down at the football field or something like that. And so there's still stuff that can happen and can be in play, but realistically, it's going to probably be something at the last minute. I understand that, you know, I get emails all the time, for instance, say, well, this other school is going to have a like a spree, et cetera. They might be planning one, but I seriously, my crystal ball suggests it's going to be probably about a 20% chance that they can pull it off, given the current rules, et cetera, and the fact that the venues are iffy at best. So they are collecting money from students, and we'll see where that goes, but that's not in the cards for Ingram High School for a number of reasons. One is the school probably wouldn't be able to do it through our rules. The other schools, if they are trying to do it, are doing it through their PTA, which is essentially a nonprofit group that can spend their money any which way they want. So that's sort of where we're at right now. Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question. It's about fall. I know that there are lots of things in play in terms of the board and SPS and negotiating with the union and what our state guidelines are. So I recognize all that. Setting all that aside, if what was approved was a full-time reopening, but with remote options for students and families who feel that they need it, do you feel that Ingram has the support that you need to make that happen? And what do you need so that parents who are in the middle of advocating for this can make sure we're advocating for the right things?
Well, if a parent group or an individual parent were advocating for school to be back in session, and I would be all for that. Yeah, I will be pulling in the same direction. Number one. Number two, my concern with all of this is that somehow we get the expectations from the CDC that goes down to the state, that goes down to King County, and somehow we're more restrictive than whatever the recommendations are. We're sitting at a place right now that wasn't even recommended by the CDC. The CDC currently says it's 3 feet. The CDC says this, and somehow we're at a place where all that's thrown out the window. I just hope that we're nimble enough to say, and don't lock it into, so let's say, a teacher contract. When you negotiate with a teacher contract and you actually say in writing that it's 6 feet or it's this many kids, and then the guidance from the CDC changes, you're kind of stuck. I just hope the district's nimble and is able to say, hey, it's the CDC says we can do this. They do currently right now. I'm not sure what advocating for it would mean, but I would think that at least asking the district to follow the guidance of the CDC. If that were true, we'd probably largely be back, or at least more students would be back in school right now. As far as online supports, et cetera, I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't even know, it might even be handled centrally as far as an online. I don't have the capacity to run a school and then have teachers do, an online thing. And I was looking at and reading up on the Department of Health recommendations regarding full-time next year, and I don't recall requiring an online option. Maybe they are, but they are requiring to be in school 5 days. So I'm not 100% sure that there's going to be a free or other online option. There are anyway. Suppose that district didn't offer one. There's I forget what the name of it is. It's run by another
Insight.
school.
There's Insight.
Yeah, Insight. That's basically a school district, and they're raking in the dough for a product that might work out for some kids. But I think that virtually any school a district could probably do it, and maybe even do it better. I mean, for some kids, it's great. I mean, we have kids that, for whatever reason, choose to, we get kids coming into Ingram and kids going, and I see where they're going. And occasionally we'll get one that says, I want to do online learning, let's say with you Insight or one of the other companies. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know that Ingram's ready to go.
Oh yeah, I mean,
we're to go ahead to be
for everyone's. Yeah, I mean, I told the staff when we were coming back, with the whole, school's going to be back on the 19th, et cetera. And we had 60, 60, let's say 100 and some staff members. I just said, look, we're all coming back. We've got both sides of the spectrum. We've got those that, when they go to Costco, they wear a skirt made out of pool noodles to keep people 6 feet away. And then we also, in the same, probably have some teachers that are anti-maskers. And all these same people have to work in the same thing, following the rules, et cetera. And so we're doing a good job. Everyone's being reasonably, I shouldn't say reasonably, everyone's been great. Occasionally we'll get a teacher that misunderstood, that didn't understand early on. We had some teachers that were screwing up a little bit as far as their mask wearing, but we've got everyone understanding, and they understand the angst that's out in the community regarding this. And so it's not a time to be loosey-goosey, but it's not a time also to necessarily be more restrictive than the CDC. Hey, Janet, I see your hands up. Janet Boyette's our school nurse.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to say that I'm really, really proud of the downtown COVID team, and the things that they're doing, contact tracing, that wouldn't happen if we were relying.
Janet, totally. What the hell are you doing at work still?
Well, I was invited, so here I am. I just wanted to say I'm so proud of them, because they're doing above and beyond the work that could even be possible with King County Department of Health, because the capacity isn't there. And I do want to say that I'm so proud of Carrie Nicholson, who has risen to a new position in the district, who was one of our nurse managers. And they're following the best science. So even though the CDC is saying 3 feet is okay, that science isn't great. And so I'm even though it's not, I mean, the kids obviously are not following a 6-foot rule. I'm just going to say what I see in the hall. And they're doing the best they can. They were designed to be next to each other. And so that's what they're trying, that's what they're doing. But I just do want to say I'm really proud of the COVID team. So that's all.
Thank you, Janet. I want to say too that, you know, I'm in the hallways, et cetera. I've had to say maybe once, tell a kid to get their mask up, you know, it slipped down and they were probably looking at me to see what I'd say. But just, it was like a friendly reminder. And so there's really no tension regarding it. You know, hey, he's too close. Everyone's being really respectful of other people. And the teachers are doing a pretty good job, you know, just with the reminders, et cetera. But it's all working out. It's better than I thought it would. Now, granted, you know, the product of having teachers, you know, try to do online and in person at the same time. And I'm not even getting to get into the effectiveness of the current model. But as far as, since we have to work within this model, I think the Ingram staff's doing a pretty good job.
Okay, we got a hand up here, so go ahead and.
Yeah, first I wanted to just thank you for your leadership, Principal Flo. And I have a question. We have a new student, first-year student at Ingram. I'm just wondering, well, you probably obviously don't know what's going to happen in the fall. Will there be an effort to welcome in sophomores who are, you know, she's in the building now and she's getting to know it, but I think missing that first experience. So I'm just curious what you're thinking around that.
We're going to have to do something. I'm not sure, you know, there are people saying, are you going to plan to do this, you know, coming in now after the governor's thing? And, you know, we looked at it and thought, we don't know what we're planning because right now the rules won't let us do anything like that. I agree that we have a whole group of kids that haven't even been inside the building, which is mind boggling. And it's unfortunate. And so I think that we need to do so. We haven't planned anything yet, but it's something we need to do. And, you know, sort of an onboarding of the 9th and 10th graders. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I agree with you. And let's see if I can meet your expectations. But yeah, we have to acknowledge that we now, you know, we've got 4, you know, it's a large number of kids, and it's for us, it's going to be interesting to see what rituals hang on from the past, where we're going to have new rituals during PEP assemblies, or what it's going to look like. We're sort of starting all over, and it's going to be interesting. But to answer your question, I agree, and let's see what we can do.
And from the Friends of Ingram side, we normally have a 9th grade rep on the board who helps organize some of the incoming 9th grade people, and we're going to have a 10th grade rep as well next year, just so we can try to address that that issue of people who don't, both students and parents not knowing the school and the community.
I'm probably preaching to the choir, but again, if we want to do it back relatively normal next year, if your kid wants a COVID shot, they can get it right at Ingram and chat it up with friends, et cetera. I'll be very interested to see if what the supply versus demand is coming up. You know, you've heard sort of what's going on with the Tacoma Dome, et cetera, where they had, they only were able to give out half of them. Just disappointing, but I just want to get shots in arms of the willing and move on from there. But we're doing everything we can to get the word out there.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Sure. Principal Flo, will Ingram also have a graduation video like they did last year for seniors who might not walk in ceremonies this year?
That's a good question. I'll have to check with the district. I suspect yes. I don't know if it'll probably be again, I would have to say yes, although I'll probably hear more details. There's supposed to be a big communication to the schools on Friday. So the process is each student, senior, will get 4 tickets to the graduation, and there'll be specific seating areas, et cetera. So that's sort of the limit that the district has provided. And because there's a limit like this, I suspect then that they'll provide video, some sort of video streaming. I can't promise you, but but I know the district has been looking at that.
Will that also cover students who are not able to or to go into the groups, for example, for the in-person graduation? For the students who wouldn't be there themselves.
Are you referring to like what was done last year, where there's an actual video of the graduation?
Yeah,
not the graduation, but a virtual graduation where there's. I would have to check on that. For a while, they were doing that, planning that in parallel, but that I believe was before they determined that they could have an in-person graduation. That's something that was handled at the district level. I can tell you, I don't think we're going to have the bandwidth, if, let's say, to do it at the school level. And part of it, part of the biggest problem is even getting pictures and of the students at this point. It's a huge lift. I can check, but as I said earlier on, they were looking at that, but that was before they made the decision to have an in-person.
Did that answer your question, Agnes?
Oh, yes, it did. I really enjoyed the virtual graduation last year. It really, as an incoming family, it gave me a sense of Ingram and just the school's values. And I watched a few other high schools, and I was really excited to see Ingram's virtual graduation, and it made coming here even more exciting. So I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for the feedback. Erica.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm a mother of a 11th grader and a 9th grader. I just want to thank you for it's been the communication has been really great. So thank you, and thank you to the staff. The question I have is on vaccination rates. Will you be sharing on aggregate the percentage of staff members who have received the COVID vaccine? And if to whatever extent you can say how many of the students, 80% of our kids have been vaccinated.
Well, unfortunately, I think that's probably protected healthcare information at this point. So, but I can tell you, out of the staff, I know of only one, one that is, I think, made the choice not to be vaccinated, but that was early on, and I think that's changed. There might be others, but I would say the rate for the staff is extremely high. But again, I have no way of knowing. The students, I, again, have no way of knowing. Again, it's protected unless the government, like the mumps and measles and all that stuff, MMR or whatever, if that is reported by the state, then I might be able to get something out. I can say that I was a little, we had this clinic 2 weeks ago or whatever on a Friday, and I was surprised at how few. It was a little harder to fill the seats than I thought, and I maybe that's because you can now get them everywhere, whether it's Walgreens or whatever. But I was surprised. I thought the demand would be a little higher, and so I'm very interested in on Monday and Thursday what that looks like. I think that the Ingram is going to be like a cross section of Seattle, and Seattle, I think, has a higher rate than Washington as an average, and Washington has a little higher rate than other areas of the nation. Given that the vaccine hasn't actually been approved by the CDC, I don't see the district requiring it at this point because of that. That could change. I spent a good 5 minutes not answering your question, but that's as close as I can get it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'm available for email questions too. I appreciate the feedback on the communication. I do try to decentralize some of it. You know, some people say, where's the letter from the principal? No one reads that crap. And I'm speaking as a parent myself. What's important is the communication from the school as a whole, from the teachers, the interaction between the kids and the teachers. But you know, we've all learned a little something, and being a COVID principal wasn't my strong suit, and I'm just looking forward to getting back into school. So.
Do we have any more questions for Principal Flo?
I'd just like to disagree with his assessment of not being a good COVID principal. I think he's excellent.
Oh my God, now you're making it sound like I'm a teenager.
No.
I look so ugly in this shirt. No, you don't. You look fabulous. No, that's not what I was looking for, but I appreciate it.
No,
anyway.
I think your staff loves you.
I know, but it's just,
yeah.
it's just been,
and
this has been a miserable experience for everyone and me.
Yeah.
I just, anyway,
Yeah.
I just want to be, I'm tired of looking at people on a screen. That's all. But you know, it's no different. What your kids are going through, what, you know, we got people out of work, we got people on this, and I'm bitching that I'm getting my full salary to look at a screen, and I probably shouldn't, but it's just not, it's, yeah, I'm happy for all this to end someday. I'm sorry, now I'm emoting too much.
So I'm going to give a plug for, if you join the volunteer for the Friends of Ingram board, you can, there's one of these reports at every monthly meeting, and so you really get the straight scoop that will not get written down anywhere. So yeah,
yeah, except for the fact you recorded the meeting.
Well, okay.
You know, the great thing is I'm guaranteed that this meeting will never be shown again, given that we were bombed.
Yeah, if we can't cut the middle out of that, then that's we'll have to cut that out. But anyway, we'll do our best to do that so that we can get it up on the website. Scott, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I appreciate that. This is the first time I've actually been on a Zoom bomb, so that's pretty great.
I know. I'm same here. That's exciting.
Yeah, I feel kind of special. Do we have any idea? I know kind of the turn on Monday and Thursday, but do you have any idea how many needles, how many sticks per they can do? How many people are they bringing out? I'm just curious about logistics. Are there going to be lots of people?
I
going to be a big long line?
I wouldn't come the first half hour personally. Number one. Number two, it sounds like they're doing quite an abbreviated process. They said it's like 3 minutes, and then 3 minutes, then you're sitting down for 15, and then you're out of there. So the way they were talking, it's going to be quick and fast, and they're bringing plenty of vaccines. So I've heard. But Janet, is that what you heard too?
Yeah, you're right on. I think they're gonna bring enough vaccine to do 80% of our student body, which is going to be way more than we need. And they're not going to thaw it until the last minute. So I'm sure, given we only had 180 at the last venue, I'm going to guess that we're not going to have that many this time. That'd be my guess. I don't know though.
I think that the way they're sounding, the Seattle Fire Department, their efficiencies, imagine getting your shots going into the military. I think they're going to be going through quite fast from what I've heard.
We had them do a COVID test, and they were merciless. So
yeah, it's going to be similar, I suspect.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you coming. I apologize again that we got bombed in the middle of this. That's a square on my bingo card I did not want to ever have to fill.
I want to know how that even happened, because you were the only presenter, and Anyway,
I don't know where that one came from. But we will, hopefully we'll be able to cut the bomb out of the middle, and we'll be able to post this up for everybody to be able to see. If you have any questions, please, give us an email. You should get an email every week from the school, from Friends of Ingram High School. The Parent Weekly Bulletin should come out every Friday, and you can reply to that. It goes straight to my inbox, and I'll answer it as quickly as I can. And yeah, would love to hear from you. Again, we're looking for volunteers. All levels of commitment welcome. So thanks so much for coming.
good night and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.